Why The Rings of Power does not feel like Tolkien. There are two reasons. One is theology, and the second is cohesion. Hi, I'm Paulo Fabregas. I write and draw comic books, a general fan of storytelling. I have links to my books below if you're interested. One is about a team of third world superheroes called the Filipino Heroes League. Pick it up. It's a fun political superhero romp. Now, back to the video. So, the first one is theology, right? Why doesn't Rings of Power feel like Tolkien? The first one is theology. Tolkien, as you all know, it was a Catholic, and he has stated that The Lord of the Rings is an undeniably Catholic work. And there is a huge gap between how The Rings of Power and The Lord of the Rings view evil, and why one show has orcs suing for peace for their wives and babies, and the original does not. What is evil, and what should our relationship be with evil? In The Lord of the Rings, the primary evil is the ring itself, a powerful, magical tool that is wholly evil. Anybody who tries to use it to do good and destroy Sauron will become another Sauron himself. Gandalf is tempted by it and resists it. Galadriel is tempted by it, and we have this amazing scene. Instead of a Dark Lord, you shall have a queen. This is Catholic theology. You cannot commit an evil act to do good. You cannot murder because a person might do something evil, even if you think he's going to throttle you in your sleep. This is the conflict of Sam and Frodo with Gollum. In the real world, you cannot drop an atomic bomb on a civilian population because you think it's going to save lives in the future. And in The Lord of the Rings, even desiring to use the ring drives people mad, even if it's to do good. Boromir loses his mind as he attacks Frodo. Saruman becomes a twisted shell of himself enslaved to Sauron and the ring. Denethor loses all hope because his hope lied solely on the use of the ring. The ring has a greater effect on the great, and the less are surprisingly resistant to its terrible effects, which is why hobbits can hold it for so long. But they too can become twisted, broken wretches if the ring is held too long. And 3 elven rings, though made for good, since they are made with the same magic as the One Ring, are bound to it. Though they desire to do good with it and preserve the beauty of Middle-earth, they cannot because of their connection to the One. What an incredible temptation and horrible problem the ring creates. If the ring finds its way into Sauron's hand, he covers the land in darkness. If you use the ring, you will certainly defeat Sauron, but you in turn will become a second Sauron and cover the land in darkness. And even the desire to use it already drives you mad. You cannot commit an evil act to do good. This is Catholic theology. Point number 2, the original is cohesive. A great story is always about one thing. The Lord of the Rings is a work of Catholic evangelization and is about God's triumph over sin and evil. You feel the presence of God, or Iluvatar, throughout the book. He is the force that guides the ring into Bilbo's hand and leads it into Frodo's, and in the end, Frodo doesn't save the day. God does. Gollum slips, and the ring falls in the fires of Mount Doom. We do not save ourselves. That's Catholic theology. And everybody in the book struggles against this one thing, this one doom, the temptation to use evil for good. But only God can save us, and God is good. It's one story, cohesive. Now to The Rings of Power, Episode 1. Is the theology correct? Is it cohesive? No and no. I have only watched one episode of The Rings of Power and can say that it lacks the cohesion and moral compass of Tolkien. You can say, oh, but that's just one episode, Paulo. Give it time. No. From the onset, you should establish your major theme. If Breaking Bad can do it in the opening episode, so can you. What is Galadriel's arc about? What are the clues set up by the writers? Galadriel is obsessed with evil, that the pursuit of evil is what she is. She is nothing without her sword. In short, she needs evil to exist in order to be. She's so compelled to fight the evil, she would rather cross the sundering seas by swimming than go to Valinor, elf heaven. But the writers didn't really even establish elf heaven as a nice place anyway. It's a place where evil elf boys destroy your beautifully made paper boats. Who would want to go there? So in Galadriel, we have the question of, what does it mean to be good if evil does not exist? In order for me to be good, I need the evil. See how this departs from Catholic and Tolkienian theology. Ilúvatar exists even before evil comes into the world. He is good. He creates good things with freedom. Morgoth used that freedom to oppose Ilúvatar, and evil enters the world because anything that goes against what Ilúvatar wants is evil. But in The Lord of the Rings of Power, it's hard to tell what is good and what is evil. This is underlined by the episode in this exchange between Finrod and Galadriel. I will now play both parts with my English accent. Finrod. With her friends, Galadriel plays with the paper ship. It was a good ship, sister. I made it just as you taught me. Do you know why a ship floats and a stone cannot? Because the stone sees only downward. The darkness of the water is vast and irresistible. The ship feels the darkness as well, striving moment by moment to master her and pull her under. But the ship has a secret. For unlike the stone, her gaze is not downward but up, fixed upon the light that guides her, whispering of grander things than darkness ever knew. But sometimes the light shines just as brightly reflected in the water as they do in the sky. It's hard to say which way is up and which way is down. How am I to know which lights to follow? Then he whispers in her ear, and this is mystery boxed until the very end, until finally it's revealed what he says. Sometimes we cannot know until we have touched the darkness. But that seems so simple. The most important truths often are, but you must learn to discern them for yourself. I won't always be here to speak them to you. I must touch darkness in order to know the true light. I must be intimate with evil in order to know what is good. This is not Catholic theology. In fact, I'd say that it's kind of Marxist, right? Good and evil aren't values that we know from the beginning, given to us by God himself. No, good and evil are values that we discover ourselves by experimenting and prodding and feeling the limits. This comes from the idea that we ourselves define what is good and what is evil, and God does not. People also say that this is an example of good writing, but it is not. So let's explore this metaphor about the lights. Galadriel doesn't know which is the true light, the reflection or the sun. So let's put ourselves in Galadriel's position. You're standing by a pool, you see a reflected light, you see the sun. Oh, which one is the true light? I'm confused. The one in the sky. My head, feet, gravity tell me which is the true light. So if Galadriel came up to me and told me that, I'd tell her, what do you mean you can't tell? You can't tell what's up or down? This is a lousy metaphor. So in order to know that Sauron is evil, I must touch Sauron. But you see now how that flies in the face of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Saruman's desire to be intimate with the ring is what corrupts him. Same with Boromir and Denethor. These people are opposed to characters like Faramir, who wouldn't pick up the ring even if they found it on the street. And that is why this series isn't connecting with the hundreds and millions of Tolkien fans all over the world. And it is this muddled view of good and evil that leads to, I think, a terrible characterization of Galadriel, a cutthroat woman who will stop at nothing to achieve her goal, even sacrificing her fellow elves. But looking at the entire episode as a whole, this theme of Galadriel has nothing to do with the other characters. As I said from the start, a good story is cohesive. It's about one thing. The Harfoot adventure centers around Nori, who is longing for adventure. And then you have the elf of color, Arundel, and his theme that seems to revolve around prejudice, a forbidden love between an elf and a woman, and the woman comes from the blood of the people who followed Morgoth. I can't seem to fit the idea of you must touch the darkness in order to know the light in any of these other stories. And because there is no cohesion, you're left with this question, what the heck is this about? What am I watching? What am I doing here? And you're not compelled to watch any further. So, why doesn't The Rings of Power feel like Tolkien? It lacks cohesion, and the theology is all wrong. And when you get the theology wrong, you get the whole world wrong. You get the whole value system of good and evil incorrect. If you're in this gray relative mess, you'll never come up with lines like, there's good in this world, and it's worth fighting for, Mr. Frodo, right? It's not in the book, but it could have been. Instead of wishing to destroy the orcs, you're debating on the morality of killing orc fathers, leaving poor orc widows and orc orphans at home. We have an elf heaven populated with evil elf boys wanting to destroy your toy ships. And instead of women that inspire us with their beauty, bravery, and femininity in the face of evil, we're left with a woman who is cutthroat and unfeeling, who cannot find a way to exist without evil in this world, without a sword in her hand. It is a pity, as a lot of genius and resources have been poured into the show, but I will most likely not watch another minute of it. I will instead be watching the summaries of Nerdrotic and The Critical Drinker. We should all thank them for their service. It is they that are touching the dark so that we may continue to bask in the light. Thank you for listening. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe and ring that bell.